Welcome to day 5 of my social media Lent devotional series, where together we're following Christ's footsteps to the crucifixion and then beyond to his resurrection. I'm Jennifer Slattery with the Faith Over Fear podcast and also the Your Daily Bible Verse podcast. And I wonder, how deeply does this common phrase, this common statement resonate with you? That time is our most limited, our most precious commodity. I wonder how many of you, like, we just came out of the holidays and we are rapidly approaching the resurrection. And then comes Mother's Day and graduation and weddings. And I wonder how many of you feel like you have more demands placed on you and responsibilities and expectations than you could possibly fill. And you're doing the best you can to balance it all, right? Like, you want to be there for your friends and family and to be supportive and be engaged and to build into those really important relationships. And you want to be a good neighbor. You want to contribute to your community and you want to contribute at your church, right? You want to serve regularly and you want to be good at your job. You want to honor your responsibility to your employer. And you want to be healthy, at least try. And so you think it'd be kind of nice if you could go to the gym maybe 3 nights a week. And you maybe should go to the grocery store every once in a while and cook dinner and clean house and tackle that never ending supply of laundry. And amidst all of that, your soul craves time with Jesus. Like, the more that you are giving out, you just need that to come back into you and to fill you up, right? He gives us the vitality that we need. But then looking at our agenda, our schedule, and all of these demands, it can be hard to figure out, like, where are we going to fit everything in? And quite frankly, we can't fit everything in. So then the question comes, what are we going to eliminate or reduce in order to take time for what we need most so that we can be our best to the people that we love, right? And to our employers, so that we can come filled. And as I was reflecting upon the passage that I'm going to be discussing in a moment, I was reminded that when God calls us to spend time with him, he takes care of everything else. So this is from Luke chapter 22. And beginning in verse 1, we read, "Now the feast of unleavened bread, which is called the Passover, was approaching. The chief priests and scribes were seeking how they might put him," that's Jesus, "to death, for they were afraid of the people." So basically, they're trying to find a sly way of doing this, and that's why they needed Judas. This is also why Jesus kept the location of this last meal, the Passover that he was going to spend with the disciples, he kept it secret, because commentators believe he didn't want Judas to be able to tell the religious leaders ahead of time where he was going to be. He wanted to make sure to preserve his time, that special meal that he wanted to spend with the disciples. And so he says to Peter and John, "Go and prepare the Passover for us so that we may eat it." And they said to him, "Where do you want us to prepare it?" And he said to them, "When you have entered the city, a man will meet you carrying a pitcher of water." Now, this would have been unusual because women typically carried the water. So this man would have stood out right away. And he said, "Okay, so when you see this man, follow him into the house that he enters, and you shall say to the owner of the house, the teacher says to you, 'Where is the guest room in which I may eat the Passover with my disciples?' And he will show you a large furnished upper room. Prepare it there." So this man was probably wealthy, and he had this area that Jesus had already ensured would be ready for them. And it says then in verse 13, "And they left and they found everything just as he had told them, and they prepared the Passover." So Jesus went ahead of them and he prepared this place for them. He kept it secret so that all of the demands, all of the chaos, the storm that was taking place all around, Judas plotting for his death, the Pharisees and the religious leaders plotting for his death, all of the chaos in the city as everybody was just thronging into Jerusalem, like, all of that was silenced in this upper room. And we see both in this passage, we see God's part. He prepares a place for us, and he ensures that everything is taken care of so that we can fully experience our time with him. But then he calls us to do something as well, right? Like, the disciples, they had to actually leave and they had to go find this man and they had to follow him to this house and then they had to make preparations. And here's how it spoke to me though. As I thought about the preparation that Jesus did for this moment to ensure that he had this time with the disciples, I was reminded of how he prepares me for the time that I spend with him. And a few years ago, it was just a really challenging season for me. And I sensed God calling me to spend considerably more time with him than I typically do. And it was during a really busy season. And I struggle with that. Like I struggle to obey in my like human logic. I'm like, but I have to get these things done. What I didn't realize is God had already taken care of everything. Like he made sure if I did my part, he made sure that everything concerning me was taken care of because he's good that way. Scripture says that every day of our lives were written in his book before a single one came to pass. And Ephesians 2:10 tells us that he prepared his plans for us in advance. And both of those verses, they tell me that he's already taken into account everything going on in my world when he calls me this Lenten season to hit pause, to maybe set aside this one thing in my to-do list so that I can receive deep nourishment from him.